Hi, I'm John Park. Look what we've got today. This is a giant blade from a wind generator. Now, a generator with blades this large can put out 20 kilowatts, which is enough to power a small neighborhood. Today on the Maker Workshop, we're going to build our own wind generator, one with slightly smaller blades, like this. Now, this isn't going to take you off the grid, but it will charge a 12-volt storage battery. And the best part about this project is that it demystifies the process of turning wind into electricity. The first question is, where do you get a generator? Well, you can turn a motor into a generator. Like this one, we pulled it from an old treadmill. And it's perfect for our project because it has this removable flywheel that we can attach the turbine blades to. As far as the electricity part goes, watch this. When I attach a voltmeter to the leads and spin the shaft on the generator, I get electricity, about 6 volts or so. This is perfect. All I need to do now is attach turbine blades to this flywheel, and I've got a wind generator. Commercial turbine blades are carefully engineered and cost a fortune. A maker named Abe Connolly came up with a far cheaper solution using PVC pipe, 8 inches in diameter and 24 inches in length. Now, the 8-inch diameter gives you the proper curvature to efficiently convert the straight line motion of the wind into the rotation of the turbine. And this is Schedule 80 pipe, which is a heavier duty PVC that makes a very strong blade. Now, you probably won't find this at the average hardware store. We had to talk to a plastics supplier to come up with a short length of this that was remaindered from another project. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is prepare this for cutting. I'm going to clamp it to my workbench so it doesn't roll around. And then, this is a really cool trick. I'm going to take an angle iron and set it on the pipe here to create a nice straight line. Now, I'll measure 5 1/4 inches, and I'm actually going to create 3 lines for my cuts. So here's the first 5 1/4. Mark it, and set my angle iron on here. If you press this on firmly, you're guaranteed to get a parallel line. I'm ready to cut the pipe. I'm clamping it down with some C-clamps, and now I'm going to cut it with a saber saw using a medium fine blade. Take your time. This is heavy-duty plastic, so it'll be slow going to get through it. Now, don't forget your safety glasses, and I wouldn't wear your best clothes because this is going to kick up some dust. All right, I finished cutting out my blanks, and I'm actually going to be able to get 2 blades out of each of these. You can see where I've marked it up. That's how it's going to cut. And I'm also going to remove this little notch out of here to reduce the amount of turbulence between blades. Now, you could cut this on a bandsaw using a jig. I'm actually going to use my saber saw and just clamp it to the table, do half the cut, and then flip it around and do the other half. Finished cutting out all 3 of my blades. Now I want to shape them into a wing shape. This will transfer the most wind to the generator. The way to do that is to put a rounded profile into the leading edge, that's the shorter one, and a tapered profile into the trailing edge. I'm going to use a sander to do this, but I'm going to be careful to stop about 2 inches from the end so that I can secure my bolts here. And make sure that you wear goggles and a mask for this. It's going to kick up a lot of dust. All right, after a good bit of sanding, I've got a nice wing shape on all 3 blades, including this really sharp trailing edge. Now, I need a way to attach the blades to the flywheel, so I've drilled 2 holes into the end of each blade for a 1/4 inch bolt. And I'm going to need to drill and tap the flywheels to attach them. Here's another flywheel. I've put a little pattern on here. I used a protractor to get 3 evenly spaced holes. And you can find a full set of plans on our website. Now it's time to drill. I need to thread these holes for a 1/4 inch bolt. So use a 1/4-inch tap wrench. Put a little bit of cutting oil on here, and then I'll start threading it with my tap wrench. And the trick here is to go in like a half turn and then back out, let some of the metal chips fall through. Do it nice and steady so that you get a good straight threading into the metal. And once I'm all the way through the flywheel, I'm done. Okay, I've tapped all 3 holes in the flywheel, and now I've attached the blades using 1 bolt each. Now I'm going to measure the distance between the blade tips. I want these to be perfectly even so that I know where to drill the other 3 holes in the flywheel. Now this exact alignment of the blades is critical to get optimal performance of the wind generator. We need to put the generator on a frame that can point into the wind. So I've built one out of some channel aluminum, and I've attached a tail here. Now I made this tail out of sheet metal, put a pattern on it, and cut it out with some pin snips. Watch out, because you'll get some sharp corners and edges, so you can deburr that with a file. Now, the whole frame is going to sit on a pipe flange like this. That's where it's going to pivot. So I'll attach that using a bolt and washer and screw a nut on through the other side. We'll attach the wind generator to a piece of 1.5-inch pipe. You can get this at a steel yard. Here I've attached it to a floor stand so that I can set it up. So that the frame can spin freely in the wind, I'm going to attach it to a pipe union. The way this works is I'll set these 2 together and screw this on, but leave it just a little bit loose so that this spins freely. Now I'm ready to screw the frame on. I'm just attaching this pipe flange to the pipe nipple, and now this will turn freely. So now it's time to attach the generator. I've attached the motor to the frame with a couple of hose clamps. Just going to tighten this one down. And now I'm going to get my finished blade assembly. I'm going to attach this to the shaft of the motor. Now, to make this a little easier to work with, I cut a notch with a hacksaw into the end of the shaft. So this way I can take a screwdriver, fit it onto there, and since this freewheel is threaded, it's just a matter of turning this to attach the 2. Once I get that on there, it should turn freely. Check it out. Beautiful. The voltage produced by a wind generator is pretty uneven, just like the wind. You don't want to plug a device directly into this. Instead, you want to use it to charge some batteries. In this case, we're using 6-volt golf cart batteries. These are designed for a full charge and discharge cycle. Now, if I were to hook my motor directly up to the batteries, it would just spin like a propeller. Instead, I'm going to use a bridge rectifier. This acts as a sort of gateway for electricity, keeping it flowing only in one direction. In our case, from the generator to the batteries.
Traditionally, the method of supplying power to a local area in Europe has been through centrally generated power from coal, gas, and nuclear-fueled power stations. Wind has also become an important renewable, but the wind doesn't always blow. To ensure we have the power we need, there must be a backup. Traditionally, up to 20% of electricity production is lost through power lines on the way to the consumer. Additionally, much heat is generated in electricity production, and this disappears straight into the atmosphere and is lost. To meet a steadily increasing demand for power, it will be necessary to increase both production capacity and to upgrade the grid. By supplementing centrally produced electricity production with smaller decentralized combined heat and power plants, so-called CHP plants, the energy efficiency coefficient increases by 25%, and
gasification can convert municipal solid waste into energy and valuable chemical products. It's a clean alternative to conventional incineration and works in a fundamentally different way. Incinerators use large amounts of air to burn municipal solid waste. They produce pollutants that can only be cleaned up after combustion, and they leave behind ash that must be carefully disposed of. The heat generated by incinerators is used to make steam and generate electricity. Gasification doesn't actually burn the municipal solid waste. Instead, it breaks the molecules apart with heat and a very small amount of air or oxygen, and then recombines them to form syngas, a clean fuel similar to natural gas. It's these chemical reactions that make gasification so different from incineration. The syngas can be used to make fuels, chemicals, fertilizers, and consumer products, and to generate electricity.
Utah inventor Paul Pantone has developed what he calls the GEAT fuel processor, a plasma generator similar to a super carburetor that actually appears to run on 80% water and is entirely non-polluting.
This device replaces the carburetor and exhaust and combines them as one unit, whereas this end of it acts as a miniature refinery, allowing the engine to run on everything from battery acid and water mixed to crude oil right out of the ground. This is Angola crude, a 39.5 gravity. The exhaust coming down goes around and comes out here at the far end. The center chamber draws some of the heat from the exhaust, plus this tube takes some of the exhaust gases, takes them up into the chamber and bubbles them down to the bottom. The bubbles, as it comes through the fuel, are brought up to the top of the chamber, picked up through a tube, and fed up the center of the exhaust pipe. While they're being fed up the exhaust pipe, they are in a vacuum, and there's a heat exchange which occurs. This process has been argued a few times to be either a plasma field, an electro field. We do know that it does have a slight radiation, which is not alpha, beta, or gamma, and we do have X-rays to show that whatever is coming from the unit does get affected different from stainless steel than the regular steel. Go. So the temperature of the exhaust is the same as the air temperature going in from the air portion up here. Normally 3% more oxygen coming out of the tailpipe than there is in the air we're breathing. No carbon at all.
Carbon vanishes.
I wouldn't say vanishes, I would say transmuted into some other substance, a lighter element, because we have an abundance of lighter elements here that are not explained from down here. But during the heat process, there are molecular changes. After running this engine from 1983 until now, and many times we had it running 8.5 hours a day, we have never had to change the spark plug, change the oil, or clean it. We have taken the head off 3 times to inspect the inside of it, and it's been spotless.
Okay, it never wears out because there's no moving parts.
In the top our news here at 6 o'clock, an age-old dream becoming a reality. A local inventor has discovered a way, hear this, to use water to run your car.
It's a major breakthrough that will no doubt make motorists happy. And as Ralph Robinson explains, the Pentagon is also showing lots of interest in this project.
Water has always been considered a precious commodity, but Stan Meyer's invention may make it even more valuable. He has developed what's called a water fuel cell. It has taken the place of his old gas tank. The water fuel cell breaks down water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen. The hydrogen is used to run his dune buggy.
I don't care if you use rainwater, well water, city water, ocean water. If you don't have any fresh water, go ahead and use snow. If you don't have any snow available to you, then use salt water because there's no adverse effect to the fuel cell.
Meyer started working on this project 4 years ago. He's not a scientist. He isn't even a chemist. In fact, he never graduated from college. Myers was determined, he says, to design something to protect this country from oil embargoes.
And we have calculated that if we take the dune buggy from Los Angeles to New York, we would roughly use 22 gallons of water.
The Pentagon flew a lieutenant colonel in last week to look at Meyer's invention. There's talk of possibly using it in the Star Wars defense program and to run army tanks. Myers is currently perfecting a water fuel cell for cars. It will cost about $1,500. He says it won't need any maintenance, and you won't have to replace it. It'll be at least 2 years before the fuel system goes into mass production. The day it happens will be one the fuel industry hates, but it'll put a smile on the face of those who've had to say at one time or another, fill her up.
There is an enormous range of new things that have been worked up to a remarkable level in the past and then suppressed by the existing order for one reason or another. Either they're incompatible with classical ideas, or they upset strong financial interests, or whatever it may be. In the past, great things have been done by gifted humans. They are, in a sense, the vehicles of God Almighty in bringing this stuff into the world. And none of it has ever reached public use and public currency because of this dictatorship of the knowledge systems of the world. Video, and in particular projects like this one we're on now, they reveal that you can do to these seemingly ancient discoveries what was not possible or feasible 50 years ago. It was simply beyond technical capabilities, and the means of distributing what you discovered were all in the wrong hands. Nowadays, the internet has put all that to bed. You can't do that anymore. You know, humanity is going to have information no matter what. So I see in the things that I know about and have been personally involved with a great horizon for producing an endless series of productions like this that will bring this stuff out of the limbo where they've been shoved and into the full light of day, where some of the bright young people who are now on the earth can make them into blessings for mankind.
All his newfound knowledge of the hemp plant suddenly coalesced into a single, powerful vision. Hemp could actually save the world. In a flash moment it came to him that virtually everything now made from trees and petroleum could instead be made from hemp. That not another single tree would ever have to be cut down to make paper. That clean-burning fuel would now be made from the biomass of the abundant hemp plant. This new fuel would run cars, factories, power plants, and would even provide heat for our homes. Jack pictured a world saved from pollution, acid rain, global warming, and deforestation. In 1985, Jack published The Emperor Wears No Clothes. Since then, the book has gone on to become an underground phenomenon, selling more than 600,000 copies worldwide, and is now in its 11th edition. The first populist book of its kind, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, is part scientific document, part journalistic exposé, and part holy crusade. It takes us on a journey of discovery that provides a caustic, sarcastic, and often irreverent look at the forgotten history and economic potential of the hemp plant. Written in simple and scholarly detail, its pages are filled with numerous articles, historical documents, photographs, and diagrams, along with the writings of poets, philosophers, and of course, the emperor himself. We learn of the thousands of commercial and therapeutic uses of hemp, and how hemp has been a significant part of our spiritual and cultural heritage throughout the ages. We discover how the hemp seed could again become a basic world food, and how no other single plant seed contains virtually all the nutritional elements necessary to maintain healthy human life. The Emperor Wears No Clothes explores in great detail Jack's most passionate beliefs, that biomass fuels derived from hemp can provide virtually all of the world's energy needs, eliminating the global dependence on our nearly depleted fossil fuels. That the systematic destruction of our environment can be dramatically reduced or even stopped by using hemp as the resource for fiber, fuel, and paper. The book makes the case for hemp as the world's savior, and Jack backs it up with a $50,000 offer to anyone who can prove him wrong. So far, he's had no takers.
Intriguing answers started appearing in the early 90s when researchers pinpointed receptors in the brain and the body that bind with the cannabinoids. Receptors can be described as locks on the surface of a cell, and when the correct key binds with the correct lock or receptor, it opens the door and delivers messages. Sometimes the message is that the body is feeling pain. Other times the message may be that there's an invader and the immune system must attack.
Scientists located two receptors, cannabinoid receptors, one called the CB1 receptor, mainly in the brain, and the other is the CB2 receptor, which is mainly in cells of the immune system.
The CB1 receptors are extremely abundant in the brain, but they're also found all over the body in the major organs, the heart, the liver, kidneys, and pancreas, as the CB2 receptor can act like a target for the cannabinoids. Once they bind with the receptor, they can tell the cancer cell to die.
So basically telling the cells basically to commit suicide, and that's what they do. And we demonstrated that that would be the mechanism by which the cannabinoids can kill the cancer, and therefore it can be used effectively as an anti-cancer agent.
Dr. Nagar-Katti and his researchers were able to eradicate almost 100% of the cancer in test tubes. but they were skeptical they would see similar results when they moved on to tumors in mice.
To our surprise, we found that almost 25 to 30% of the mice completely rejected the tumor. They were completely cured. And in addition, we found that the remaining mice also, there was a significant reduction in the volume or the size of the tumors as well.
The lab results have been so promising that Dr. Nagarkoti is beginning clinical trials with leukemia patients.
New research has shown broccoli in a pill is helping the battle against type 2 diabetes. In powder form, this superfood actually switches the body's defence shield back on and stalls the need for drugs.
Michelle Dougal may look healthy enough, but at just 38, she's being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
I was shocked, and I guess it was a reality check for me.
She was given just 6 weeks to get her high glucose levels down. Drugs the next step, her greatest fear.
You know, having to give yourself needles.
So Michelle joined a pilot study into broccoli sprouts after learning they have a bioactive compound called sulforaphane that reactivates faulty cells.
And this is the ultimate in preventive medicine, because what sulforaphane is doing in the cell is it's switching on a whole host of cell defence genes.
In its powder form, the sprout is 20 to 50 times more powerful. 7 months on, Michelle's sugar levels are normal. She also diets and exercises.
It's very encouraging to see this happening.
Nutritionist Christine Horton is about to start a clinical trial into the super sprout.
It's too early in our research to say it's life-saving, but potentially it has the ability to change lives.
Now, you could achieve the same results by eating whole broccoli, but the problem is you'd have to eat at least 2 kilos a day, every day. That's 6 of these, and they would have to be raw. Broccoli has already been shown to help protect against some cancers and acts as an anti-aging agent. Now eating your greens is giving diabetics hope.
70% of the population are at increased risk of type 2 diabetes.
Patients just diagnosed but not on medication are now needed for the trial. Lexi Hamilton-Smith, 10 News.
You could say that Jim Humble, a metallurgist, inventor and contract gold prospector, stumbled upon what would become the MMS protocol on a gold mining expedition in the rainforest of British Guiana when 2 of his men were stricken with malaria, a parasitic disease that claims 1 to 3 million lives each year worldwide. Chronicled in his book, The Miracle Mineral Supplement of the 21st Century, one success at saving a life that weighed precariously in the balance was quickly followed by another, and then another. Not satisfied with chance results, he immersed himself in understanding the cause behind the results. Enter chlorine dioxide, whose principal use has been for commercial, industrial, and municipal applications. As he refined the vastly scaled down concentrations for a human biological ecosystem, the successes, particularly with malaria, swelled. However, he also found that people with a wide range of other disease conditions were also responding well, curing such a wide range of pathologies that it indeed appeared miraculous. But what was really happening is that chlorine dioxide was doing what it naturally does, that is, oxidize low pH molecules, which include anaerobic microorganisms, viruses, parasites, toxins, and heavy metal deposits that can be stored in human tissue. What we have not appreciated over the past generation is the profound effect that toxicity has had on our health, because we have tended to use toxicity to fight it, and in so doing, we've simply become sicker. While not a cure-all at all, Jim Humble's discovery of a chemical compound that has been available to our knowledge for almost 200 years has simply made it possible to reverse a very dire trend. Chlorine dioxide was discovered by Sir Humphrey Davy in 1814, a chemist and physicist who made many contributions to science, including electrolysis, which he first used to isolate magnesium, and advancing scientific understanding of potassium, chlorine, and iodine.
All right, I wanted to explain a little bit about chlorine dioxide to you. Now, chlorine dioxide is quite different than chlorine. Chlorine dioxide kills pathogens by oxidation. Chlorine kills pathogens by chlorination. And chlorination is a process by where the chlorine combines with the pathogens or the poisons or whatever it might be and makes other various combinations of chemicals. And those combinations of chemicals in many cases are dangerous to the human body. And some of them are carcinogenic, in other words, cancer-causing. Now, chlorine dioxide doesn't do that. Chlorine dioxide destroys by oxidation. And when you destroy by oxidation, you tear the molecules apart, and they don't make any other combinations. They come apart, and then they're washed out of the body. And this is true throughout the world for the purification of water. Chlorine dioxide is used and much more expensive to use, but it does such a better job of killing off the pathogens that are in the water. And of course, chlorine dioxide is used in many other industries, but in any case, it's even approved by the FDA to destroy the pathogens and the microorganisms in slaughterhouses and in chicken slaughterhouses as well. So, and it's used in hospital floors and many other places. So I wanted to tell you a little bit, I wanted to explain to you a little bit why chlorine dioxide works so well in the body. And first I want to explain a little bit about chemistry. First thing you need to know in chemistry is that the thing that holds molecules and atoms together are the electrons. The electrons are what hold. So, and on a chlorine dioxide molecule is built like this. This single is with a single chlorine molecule, Cl, and oxygen. Oxygen molecules. Now these are all atoms, and now you have the thing that holds them together is the electrons that flow around the three atoms, and those electrons is what hold that molecule together. And so in the destruction of pathogens, let's look at a pathogen. Here's a pathogen of some kind here, and it's being held together by electrons. And so the chlorine dioxide molecule comes along and draws off these electrons. It'll draw them off over like that, and when those electrons are drawn off, the molecules will fly apart, and it becomes particles that can be washed out of the body. Now, the reason why that chlorine dioxide is so effective in the body is because it is a weak oxidizer.